So in conjunction with some of the fitness identity statements that you've made for this first week, I want to give you an orientation around some body weight exercises that you can use to solidify that fitness identity. If you want to build muscle, but you have no idea where to even begin, body weight exercises are a great place to solidify your habits of moving your body and wetting your feet with resistance training. So I want to give you a quick orientation on some of the body weight exercises that you might choose for yourself for this first week. And I encourage you to do these totally up to your appetite for this first week. Start small. If you only want to do 10 reps of each exercise throughout the week, that's totally fine. If you want to bump it up and view it more like a circuit of doing 10 push-ups, 10 squats, 10 crunches, and so on, and then upping the volume little by little, that's great. All we're going to do here is 5 or 10 reps of each exercise, and you're certainly welcome to follow along with this video, but cherry pick however you'd like. If you want to solidify your fitness habit and fitness identity by saying, I like doing push-ups and then doing push-ups, that's great. You can choose squats, you can choose crunches. I encourage you to familiarize yourself with everything so that you get an even coverage, and you'll be more prepared for when we start adding resistance to the exercises. We'll start out by doing some exercises standing, and then we're gonna go to the floor and do some exercises there. The first foundational movement to know is the squat. And for a squat, I recommend placing your feet slightly wider than your hips. Shoulder width is great. Toes and feet are pointed slightly out, but you are gonna have to find what's comfortable for you. You do wanna exercise good range of motion, and your knees should track over your toes. So a squat for me looks like this. You certainly can go deeper, and you can go a little shallower. I like to recommend generally getting to the point where you're at least 90 degrees with your legs here, and try to identify if you do have a bias towards one leg or the other. Your knees should not be buckling inward or outward. Again, tracking over those toes. Sometimes you might find that you're swaying to one side. Take a moment to identify that, because that will help you later. The next exercise is a lunge, and you can do these a couple different ways. I like to either step forward and then lunge downward, so I'm in this sort of 90-90 position. Sometimes your feet can be a little bit further or closer. You can certainly do them where your feet stay in the same spot. Great to try to get a good stretch in your hamstring as much as possible. You can also do them a little shallower, where you feel like you're really pushing your knee over your foot, trying to maintain balance here. And you can do them with a step. So taking a step forward, lunge, and then back. I recommend doing these as your body weight exercise. And if you want to add the variant, you can do a reverse lunge as well, where you're stepping back. I actually prefer these. These are generally my favorite form of doing a lunge. And you want to be even, so do each leg to the same level of repetitions that you're doing the other leg. Next, we're going to do calf raises. I recommend taking a book or some sort of platform and finding a way to elevate just a little bit so that your heels can sink down, and then you want to just raise strictly with your calves. And you can do these unilaterally, so floating that other leg. Great for your coordination and your balance. Next, we have some upper body exercises, so let's start with the push-up. For a good push-up, I like to have my hands slightly wider than my shoulders. I make sure that my elbows are not flaring out as I go down. They can be as tight as into your rib cage, but I often recommend a 45-degree angle. You also want to make sure when you're doing these that you're not arching your back one way or the other. Your hips, your head, and your feet should all make a relatively straight line. And if you find that you can't do a full push-up, I recommend taking that same straight line concept between your head, your hips, and your knees. So I'm floating my feet here or letting them rest on the ground, trying to maintain a relatively straight position. And if you find that that's uncomfortable for your wrists, you can make knuckles straight into the ground. Next, we're gonna do crunches. I often don't recommend doing sit-ups, but crunches will get you the same effect. So for a crunch, you're gonna wanna start with your head on the ground. Your hands should float behind your ears. Focus on pulling with your core so that your head is tucking toward your knees, or rather toward your pelvis. We can also do a side plank, which exercises your obliques. So I like to put my elbow stacked under my shoulder, which stacks along my other shoulder. Both feet, again, maintaining a straight line down, and just hold this position. You can do some fancy stuff with your hand here to really add a little bit of a repetition aspect to it. Next, we're gonna do Supermans, which are an exercise for your lower back. Your primary focus with these is to elevate your shoulders off the ground. So you're gonna lay flat on the ground. Hands can be in front of you or a little off to the side. And you want to bring your shoulders up toward the sky. Your feet can certainly come up, but I recommend constricting in your back so that you elevate your shoulders and your ribs off the ground. I encourage you to make a small circuit of these for yourself, or just on any given day through this first week. Pick one, do it maybe 10, 15, 20 or more times, and then see how you feel. Do a different exercise the next day.